Okay, so let's say you're printing something and you want to check for water tightness. So basically what water tightness means is that it's a file that has no defect holes in the mesh. So if you poured liquid in it, none would leak out. If a model has holes, you want to make sure that the printer knows what to fill, because if it has holes that don't have a certain defined thickness on the outside and the inside, then it won't know what to fill. So you want to make sure that the same hole is not a defect in the mesh. So basically, I've already pre-designed something here. It's just a weird egg shape with a hole in it, just to show you guys the concept. So I'm going to show you guys actually how to design something like that today. So what we're going to do, so as you see here, we have a workspace. We're in the model workspace. So that's basically where we create the sketch, create the extrude. We actually want to go into something called the sculpt workspace. And this is a workspace that you can enter into by clicking here on create form. So now we're in the sculpt workspace. As you see, it changes here to sculpt. And you go down here to create, and we have several different options from a box to plane to cylinder. So let's actually go ahead and click sphere. Let's go ahead and click the top face, and then left click in the center, and then drag out to about, let's say 3.5. You can type it in the keyboard there if you want, but let's say 3.5. Okay. So what the sculpt workspace is basically a workspace that you can create free form bodies with, and freeform bodies are bodies that just have irregular curvatures and shapes to them. That's why you see all these segments here along the sphere. It's not just a plain sphere, because these basically indicate that you can stretch and pull and twist the shape in almost any way you want, and I'll show you guys how to do that today. So we want, in order to twist certain faces, certain segments, you actually want to click a segment like that, and then hold down shift and click another segment, and we're going to click all of these at the top here, and then you can let go of shift and then go to the modify menu here, click edit form, and now you see that there are several different arrows that appear that show us that we can pull it in certain different directions. As you can see, it's almost like putty in the computer system. You can define the distance you pull it in the X or Y or Z direction. We're actually going to pull it up in the Z direction to get that weird oblong shape, like sort of like an egg or like a light bulb type shape. And we're going to click OK. And now we have that weird shape I showed you before. So that's kind of like, that's a little rundown of the sculpt mode. The really other cool thing about the sculpt mode is that you can actually delete certain sections of an object. So if I click here and I press the delete key on my keyboard, that's gone. And I click here, delete, let's delete that, and then let's delete that. And basically we have a very similar shape to what we had last time. So if we try to 3D print an object like this right now, it probably wouldn't print on our printer very well. It would probably have some errors because there is no defined thickness here. As you can see, it's almost like a flat sheet that is kind of just like folded into this weird shape. So if we try to print this right now, our 3D printer would have a very hard time understanding exactly what it needs to print, because there's no defined thickness. So to define a thickness, we actually have to go back into our model workspace. So I'm going to click finish form here. Now you see we have this really cool form, and we actually immediately go back to our model workspace. This is a really cool thing. So now we have this weird shape here. So I'm going to go into the into the create menu. I'm going to go all the way down here to thicken. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and click this object here, and I'm going to set it to -0.10. 0.1 rather, because if you try and do a little bit more than that, it won't define it perfectly, because it just will go past the constraints of what it can handle in terms of like our given shape. So I'm going to click OK, and as you can see, now we have a defined thickness here all the way that goes up and around. Basically, this whole object has a 0.1 thickness, and so if we try to 3D print something like this, it would actually be able to print it. We'd probably need some supports down here, simply given the angle of this object, but that's fine. It would definitely be able to print an object like this, and that's how you account for water thickness. You want to make sure that your print has a certain thickness to it and has no holes that the printer is not able to fill.